Thanks for acknowledging. Yes, it is 11 o'clock. I came up commercial where I like back up, went backwards. I know. All right. Now 11 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. This is just a short, hopefully a short, quick meeting. Possibly not, we'll see. We have a few new people, I think, up on the screen. I don't know. So instead of doing welcomes, I think most people know each other except for Tim, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Tim Giuliani. I am the Executive Director of Connecting Point.
Yeah. All right, roll call. We do have enough for a quorum. Me, Alex, Jesse, Jerry's here. And all right. So budget. So we handed out we sent out the information or the request last time or before the last meeting and pushed it out a little bit for folks to kind of go over those requests and ask any questions that they might have. So this is, I mean, I guess we could take a motion and then have discussion, but it's probably just easy just to have discussion right now. Is there any questions, concerns, comments?
You updated everything that was talked about, right?
Yeah, the roll up, the one, I sent another one last night after we got
I tried to.
yeah, it just took out that 5%. So it's the same.
There is a second tab for the innovation fund overview. It just has placeholders in there for if we choose to do the $15,000.
So the only thing I have, and this doesn't really have much to do with the actual vote of the budget, it's just about the process a little bit. I think I've said this before. And so like my philosophy on it is, you know, per statute, I feel like I'm kind of the steward of this process, but not necessarily, obviously it's the whole group that's making these decisions. And we've talked about this slightly before as we've moved into these requests. Looking at the requests, there's still some kind of disconnect, at least from my viewpoint, of like some people put a lot more kind of like data pieces into it and some have less. And I'd like to eventually us kind of all be on the same page of like what those metrics are. And I know we've talked about the data group and those sorts of things. With each request, like what are we looking for? Like the number of people served or like, you know, a cost benefit or what are we looking at? And I know each program is going to be different because certain things are, you know, may not be a cost benefit, but it's a statutory requirement that we do that thing. But getting those kind of metrics out, and that's why I sent out that kind of the report that Yolo County does and that they go to the board with. And it kind of has each program listed out, how much the program costs, what the program's trying to accomplish, and then metrics associated with each one of those programs. And at some point, I would like to move to something like that. So when I go to the board and have the report out, that it's less about like, here's AB 109, it started in 2011. And, you know, the same kind of shtick that we've had. And then I can report on the actual programs and those things that are related to it. And on that, I think they also have like the budget is at the back with a percentage breakdown and some other metrics related to the budget as well for when the board's making that approval. Did everyone see that link on there that I think I attached on there? Any questions, concerns about that process? And part of it is, I mean, maybe this is just me, and maybe it's, you know, because my family's been in Missouri since like the 1700s and it's the show me state, you know, I like to see those things that are attached to those items that we're funding. So yes,
Yes.
maybe so. And I think that format, at least for me, that format seems like something that we could complete and use the data group to complete. The other piece was, and I think I told Georgette that we would talk about this, and this doesn't specifically have to do with the budget, but with the jail billing that we had talked about, just so we can get this handled now. Historically, at least historically from my view of it, and Steve might know more because he was on the adult side at the time, but when the billing was submitted, it was a billing with like a laundry list of people that were AB 109, and we went back and forth about who was AB 109 or whatever. And then there was discussion about like, since it's a percentage, should it just not have that list and not that process? And then just, no, that's not what it was. Okay.
No, we're still providing the data. In fact, so they were still following the same procedures that we did last year. The data is on SharePoint. We're uploading it as we submit the quarterly billing. The only thing different is that we're not doing a mathematical calculation of this many AB 109ers times this cost equals an amount. We're just dividing the authorized budget by 4 quarterly payments. We would still provide that data on a quarterly basis. I actually think it's to your advantage because last year we still used that. For 23-24, we still used the number of AB 109 people times the cost. And so we billed the 100% of the budget within 2 quarters. So we only provided you 2 quarters worth of data. You could come back and ask us for those other quarters, that's fine. But like, we won't have that trigger to provide you the data. So if we just do it in 4 equal installments, we provide you the quarterly data, I think everybody wins.
Well, yeah, and based on like the thing that's submitted, I mean, because it was like 18 point something ADP, like just shy of 9 people, and then it had the total of like 2.6 something million total, but then 50% like cuts that down to like 1 point whatever. And then so I mean, I can do the math to calculate out what I think it was like shy of like $400 a day or something for a person. My thing, which we can work out outside of this, is like even more helpful than that was when we used to have like the weekly snapshot. They had like parole and all that, because it was more for me to manage, like, how come we have so many PRC, like, so that Steve could ask like officers, like, why were there 20 flash incarcerations this week or whatever. And that's less about budget, and that was more about like managing the people and knowing like, oh, well, they're all parole and they're not our people. So it has nothing, like something we can't impact other than talking to parole. But that could be something outside
We
of,
still maintain that, so we can communicate that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that has tremendously helped with like when I start about the numbers jump and I kind of look at what's been going on. You know, so yeah, it's really nothing to do with this process, the budget, but it's more of just, you know, with having left you JMS, that has been a traditional thing where I will check that and look around and go, what trends are we seeing and why do we have so many individuals or why it's jumped? So it is
And
super helpful.
that data's not kept in your own software,
There's no,
operational needs and what your officers are doing.
there is, we can track with somebody in custody, which we know, we usually do that through the means we have. The parole population versus, you know, we don't have the entire picture of it. It's just the, and sometimes with like mandatory supervision and things like that. So it was, I mean, it's more of a situation where you can get it from multiple pieces, try to piece it together, but it was nice in the way it was presented in that. That was a actionable thing. I didn't have much.
Yeah, because that's the only difference in the data that you guys sent with the invoice from like last year's to this year is there's that piece in there of.
We've been providing the same amount of data since I started in January of.
There's a roll up of like this AB 109, 345 or 3455, like that piece.
There's, so, a year and a half ago or so, or shortly after I started putting the more detailed information on their point site, which
Okay.
Steve has access to, Brandon has access to, maybe one other probation person has access to, and we can add whoever in probation needs access to it. But that has all of the backup, kind of detailed. I just don't feel comfortable sending that over email. It doesn't feel like it's a totally safe with all of the information in that. So that's why we put it on SharePoint, but it's still available. we're still producing it with our quarterly invoices.
But I don't know how to work SharePoint.
So industry is more secure, that's what I'm told.
The only thing that's an impact for the jail too, though, that doesn't really get talked about is the AB 109 people, they only get counted once they get convicted, but the reality is their impact in our facility pre-trial is huge. They're in for long periods of time, and none of that's really accounted for. And again, not necessarily a budgetary thing, because we hit that budgetary marker anyway, but it's an impact on our facility that people don't talk about. And
That was pre-AB 109 too. Those people didn't, until they were sentenced to prison, they didn't leave.
they didn't sit in custody like they do now. That did not happen. Like,
That might be more of a bench issue than,
I mean, we have people, we've had people in custody 7 years pre-trial.
yeah.
That's nuts. And then also,
Well, yeah, we've had the same on pretrial out of custody as well, you know, like, I think they just, I don't
but you
know.
guys see those numbers, you don't necessarily see the numbers of people that are pre-trial in our facility. So, you know, for on your guys' end, you guys see people that are on your pre-trial, like, you know, system or whatever, when they get, you know, released from court. Like, it's just something that doesn't get seen from our facility standpoint. So I'm just
It's
bringing.
actually an interesting question. Do you guys break out, now we're going to data group questions, totally going off the rails here. Do you break out booking charges into category? I mean, oftentimes I think of a felony misdemeanor, but are we breaking them out as 1170H qualifying at booking, or are you only doing that at conviction?
Well, you can't until they're convicted.
Well, I know, but as far as the charges,
If-
because I granted charges might change, convictions, you know, you could be charged, booked
If
on
they were
3 and.
Yes, that would be on there, but if they're not 1170 yet, then it wouldn't. But then some people.
But only some initial charges are even 1170 qualifying for, if you were convicted as, hypothetically, if you were
Yeah.
convicted as booked, some would be 1170 qualifying, some wouldn't. Some would be straight misto, legacy
We
misdemeanor.
wait until the court.
Okay. It just might be an interesting,
Some get captured because their VOPs are
So
flash incarcerations or whatever, but
if we have to make an assumption on what the court would do if we did like what you're saying, chief.
no, but I was just referencing your comment, saying that there's an impact of those.
Yeah, so for us, like what we thought about doing, if we had to justify like things, you know, for the amount of workload, which would be a lot of work for us, is you have to then backtrack and say, hey, this person got convicted 1170H. How long did
Three years after their booking, right? And then you have 3 years of.
So it'd be labor intensive, it's hard, but it's just stuff to think about.
and then, I mean, so it's not just detention specific, like if we were to send out something that's like we used to with the roll up of like, this is the number of parolees or PRCS or flash or whatever in custody. I mean, I foresee it like being for the different pieces too, since some of pretrial is paid out here, like here's what the probation population is, here's what the probation pretrial population is, and so that everyone could see like where those trends are as well, like for the whole group.
Because the state pushing all of this back down to the counties, I mean, we get sued more, we get everything more, we get more medical care we have to provide. We get, and then that happens, I'm sure, in everybody's. I don't know of our impacts, but the state realigning everything, there's a huge cost on that. It's not covered by the CCP fund by any means. Just stuff for us thing. But I know we don't have any argument to the state to give us more money, but it's stuff we could make sure we're tracking and paying attention to.
And the rest of the CCPs, I guess now people are coming for Prop 36 money, is what I heard yesterday. So like different entities are coming to like ask the CCP for money to help support different pieces of that. So
But I mean, on that, the bigger concern of trying to get more money, I think it'd be the concern of them taking the money we already have away, because I think they've already been talked in that sense.
They will eventually. I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
so, all right. So any other,
Quick budget question.
Sure.
On the contingency capital fund, is that 600,000 part of the 4.4 million estimated contingency, or is that a standalone carved out 600,000?
That's standalone. That's specific for facilities.
Right.
any other questions?
I think Stannis wants to just use their CCP money, changing one of their rec yards inside the facility to allow for the Title 15 changes. And different, just not innovative as in our innovation funds, but innovative ways to look at the impact of the incarceration longer for this population.
Any other questions, concerns? Anybody want to make a motion?
Are we gonna talk about the innovation next, or do you want that wrapped in right now?
I guess it's part of the budget.
So on this tab, you've got the existing commitment and then a future current, what we'd be approving, right? Two $15,000 grants,
Yeah, that's,
potentials.
We've been asked for 20,000, so I mean, I don't know if that's a consideration. And so a couple of things about innovation is like Alex just said, and we had to ask for 20, which is more than, I mean, not saying we couldn't say, well, you know, you can have 15 if we decide to give it to them. And then there's also the piece, which might be a separate discussion, of trying to roll out the innovation request. And if we want to make any changes to the format of the request, because as they pointed out, it does say in there that you have to be in existence for 3 years. And they were asking for money to start a new.
Yeah, regardless,
Nonprofit.
my feeling on that, because I saw your email on that and remember the last meeting, regardless of them, that group asking for money or not, I mean, the whole idea of innovation in a lot of ways could fund a startup initiative. And so I would be supportive of removing the 3-year kind of arbitrary number on someone asking. But I think that if they don't have a track record, then I think that's a question we need to be asking about sustainability and just the program in general.
Yeah. And I don't know how that impacts, I mean, this would probably be an Angie or Georgette question. Did the county have some new guidelines for nonprofits and?
they have guidelines for nonprofits, yes, but it's a risk assessment ultimately. So if we're talking about a pretty small amount of money and,
Yeah.
you know, wouldn't you agree? I mean, you were heavily involved in dealing with that too.
It could be an Aaron question.
That'd be their question. But I agree.
So that wouldn't have any impact on. Yeah. All right, so let's,
So what if we put out, you know, from a budgetary perspective, we approve 30,000 towards innovation, but maybe strike the proposal amounts. What if we get 3 more when we put this out? Then maybe we need to assess, maybe you're gonna have one for 8,000, one for 2,000 and one for, you know, whatever the balance is.
we just say the total
Just
amount.
a total amount of 30,000.
30,000.
Let's put it out and let's see what we get for people.
Or we get one and we don't get any. All right.
That would be in line with Steve's comment about.
So what I would say, the only challenge with that is if we do have, let's say, Spirit, or no, not gonna work because they've actually been running the program that, you know, seen. They come back wanting to re-up, or someone else comes in and we, you know, we want to approve more than 30, but we don't have that budgeted. Because ultimately building the budget right now is where we're at. Like we need to have a capped number essentially, or we'd have to go back for a budget amendment at some point.
Then you're saying like 30,000, but don't say it has to be 15,000, right?
But you're saying potentially you could commit some portion of that already to existing if they came back, which I don't know.
Well,
The board would approve that, but
yeah, I mean, that would be obviously you guys' decision, but let's just say, you know, so we know we have pause requesting 20, and then if we have, you know, all I'm getting is that we would really have to cap it. So if we get requests for 20,000 and then somebody else is requesting 15 or 20, like we have to make that decision of like, okay, we've committed 30, and then like I said, we'd have to do a budget amendment if we were gonna change that dollar amount.
Are you saving that fund balance for anything in particular?
I mean, that's you guys is.
Innovation.
So should you get more proposals than the $30,000, you could say we want to fund 60 this year into a budget.
Yeah.
amendment.
Yeah,
Have it in fund balance, but
it'd just be a budget amendment. We just
Yeah.
have to.
I think the conversation around that, when the initial innovation fund conversations were trying to put it on track, as I don't think it is that much each year that goes into that.
right, it's.
And kind of putting it on track with the reason why it was that big was we hadn't made it yet.
Yeah.
So we'd run out of money really, really rapidly if we were going much more than what we'd kind of set it at.
Yeah, that was part of the initial conversation. I mean,
Wouldn't it make sense to avoid the work of a potential budget amendment, but also knowing that we could choose to not fund the full amount, like make a motion to set that maximum expenditure this year at like 40,000 or something, just to give some room, but we could still cap either each grant or number of grantee application. I'm just throwing out ideas because I understand from a staff perspective, if we can in 5 minutes fix the problem now versus how long it takes you to go to the board of supervisors and, yeah, Aaron's office.
I mean, that seems like it would make sense to me if we did two $20,000 or a cap and then, potentially limit to two $20,000. Or 20,000 and 210.
Okay, so
I think you can say a cap and then say, and no grant will be more than,
Yeah, which is essentially what we did last year.
which.
Which we can do out of the
like
app,
15, I think that's a good number.
and we can do that the application process, right? From this perspective, you just need like a number for the budget
Yeah.
approval.
all right, can we do it as, in my mind right now, I see three different things. One is,
Do it right so somebody can say so moved.
yeah. Well, first, innovation carved out, approve the budget requests. Second one would be the innovation fund piece, and then the third one would be to change the innovation request and put it out, change it to eliminate the 3 years and then put it out for people to be able to
I think
apply.
we should do those as separate,
That's what I'm saying.
3 years. That's the,
And putting it out.
yes.
So 4 different
I
ones.
think they need to be separate.
Okay, the attorney says. So, all right, so do we want to start with the budget request that we got?
The budget or the innovation?
The budget,
So I think you're looking to a motion to approve the budget as
budget.
stated in the first tab labeled AB 109 summary budget worksheet.
Is that a motion?
Well, are we gonna do them all separate votes or are we gonna do a multi-part motion? Okay, that would be the first, that's a motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes, carries. All right, second one would be, I think, the innovation fund to budget two $20,000. So you're shaking your head now.
I think you're set a cap and then not,
Cap,
and
okay.
maybe not to exceed per proposal. If we need that here or. Wasn't
Yeah,
that?
go for
kinda-
it.
So approve the innovation fund overview to include up to $40,000 in expenses related to applicants. And I'll leave it at that for right now. That's my motion.
Is that,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries.
Do you have to, by vote of the CCP board, remove the 3-year issue on, or is that more of an administrative probation
Well, we
application
voted on the,
in the past?
Good reasons for it, so.
so. All right, can I get a motion to remove the 3-year piece to the,
The requirement.
I didn't get enough sleep. I can't articulate it in a motion. Anybody else? Alex has been pretty heavy on the
I know, I'm
motion.
trying
Anyone
to-
else want to make?
Come on, Jesse, you.
You're on a roll.
I'd make a motion that we remove the requirement that an applicant for the innovation funds have a 3-year operating history in order to apply.
Second? There you go. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Any abstain? So that one does not pass, I believe, because, well, hold on.
Did you
No,
have,
we have 4. Never mind. It does. I miscounted at the beginning.
You really did
when
need more
we
sleep.
walked in. They need to, adult hockey league shouldn't be at 10:45 at night, you know.
So is there any more?
So I'm gonna modify these documents and ultimately we
Oh, to send it out.
$40,000 total, no individual request limit specified, removing the 3-year history. Um,
The last one would be send it out, but before we do that, the one thing that I didn't do was I didn't say any discussion before we made from the motion to the vote. So do we want, not to go back, but was there any discussion on the whys of not the 3 years? I don't know if you wanted to.
I think that we had good reasons for the 3 years, which is that we didn't want some fly-by-night organization. We wanted to use CCP funds to do startups. We are the keepers of the county fisc and the state fisc with this. I think that it's irresponsible of us to get rid of a requirement that organization have 3 solid years. I mean, 3 years is not a lot. We have very few other requirements on our request for innovation funds. I mean, last year we funded something that frankly was biased and so I'm not willing to agree to get rid of 3 years, but I was outvoted, so.
I think we still have the layer, I mean, we still have the layer of, we'll vote on who those people are relative to when they put in those requests.
What are the other requirements? Because I've tried to look up our solicitation and it was linked to something on your webpage that no longer exists.
I can forward it to you.
I think it was was it in that email I sent?
You sent out what I forwarded to you?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it should have, it would be, but yeah, I know it's kind of buried in the whole board document.
While we're looking for that, I don't know, did you send out the finalized bylaws?
Yeah, and that's the last thing I have. You sent another way?
So the requirements, forward it to you, the requirements are like on page 4 of that document. Permissible uses.
You say that like it's recommended.
Or preference given to, or something like that.
So what I'm thinking, like, just from the
I
discussion.
don't have my Robert's rules of order. I don't know how to read, to reverse it.
Yeah, I was just say, we've already voted on that. I mean, we can talk about if there's language in, you know, aside from that, that we want to add to the
Yeah,
solicitation.
I guess you could say we removed that, but we could make a motion to add something different.
Make a motion to rescind the previous
Yeah.
adopted motion. And or just change it again.
Yeah, I mean, you removed, it seems like by vote, we removed the mandate, but if
Could add a
the board
preference.
wants to add other language to it, I'm sure that could be done.
In an argument why you chose one over the others. Does anybody want to make a motion to add language that preference would be given to established nonprofits? Seconds?
When is discussion?
Any discussion? I think you have to second first and then you have discussion. So,
Well, I'm sorry, what was the motion? The preference be given to established nonprofits. Second.
any discussion?
Hey, my discussion on it is that I suppose the word preference is just kind of unquantified. So I guess it's just
Consideration.
direct. No, I mean, I don't think anything's gonna, I don't think we have a scoring matrix where like, if you have an operational history, then we're gonna give you 10 points. And if you
Right.
don't, you're gonna get 0. I'm not advocating that we should have a scoring matrix necessarily either, but, so I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I guess all that is kind of a, motion that tells the voting members how to consider it in the future. But again, to my point earlier, I think that the word innovation kind of means like, come to us with something new that can do something that we haven't done before. And so that's where I could totally I understand what Carrie's saying too, and I can make an argument both ways. So I'm happy with at least giving consideration or some level of preference to someone who has an operational history, but my hope is that someone's bringing us some sort of new innovative program, not funding kind of what they already do.
You may want to be careful in that language, because what if you have one that you like more as a board, but the other one's established and your language says that you should go with the preferred established one, and you have an innovative request already on the table that is not established, that was brought in for presentation, and you could stick yourself into a position where you can't even vote for that one if you interpret your language to mean you will give preference to this one.
And so to Alex's point, good. I mean, not to make this too difficult, but there's a million grant rubrics out there. We could have a basic like rubric that kind of goes through. So, I mean, which might be good anyway. So if someone, I mean, we were lucky the first time that only 2 people applied, so we gave it to 2 people. But if 6 people apply, at least if they do a PRA of how you made this decision, that we would have some sort of basic, like
I think that's a good idea.
rubric to show them how we made that decision.
We did talk about as last year, or potentially it was when we were doing the JGCPA innovation funds, but we had talked about like, that is a.
Well, yeah, and I mean, maybe you said this, but I'm guessing one of the areas on that rubric, and I think it's kind of in the county's RFP, it's like how long the organization exists. Do they have the ability to actually complete what they're saying that they're going to do? So it could be kind of an internal mechanism that's being looked at rather than potentially the barrier to applying.
So if we use such a rubric, do we even need it?
Yeah, we have a rubric, I think that it's a lot more transparent.
Okay, so
That's what we're seeking.
I mean, we could just look at the one the county uses for RFPs too. I don't know how involved it is. It's been a while since I've looked.
You have a motion and a second, so we have to vote and then.
Or withdraw the motion. Motion with, I'm doing all kinds of stuff that I haven't done in a long time.
Half asleep.
So you want a motion for a rubric?
I don't think we need that. I think we just do that.
Make one, make sure it's.
I don't want a motion for every line and everything we're gonna evaluate.
Yeah.
I mean, I would also say that this is a budget.
For big board.
It's what it was last year.
Well, I think it was because we had to modify the budget to include it.
Yeah,
That's why it was Board of
yeah.
Supervisors.
So I don't,
Because we passed the budget, but we didn't include the innovation fund.
I don't,
So we put dates within it.
You mean in the request?
Yeah,
How does that apply to the Board of Supervisors? I think I'm not,
in our solutions.
specify it's.
Oh, in the resolution.
24.
Yeah, because we had to do an amendment. We had to get the fund set up. I don't know that we would have to take this one to the board, but that would be a discussion point. We'd have to find out.
Aaron shaking her head.
Yeah,
So you take it because it's a feel good item that you would want to.
right.
And on that same note, with our CCP presentation, we've been postponed twice, so I think now it's going on consent, so. Because the calendars have just been crazy the last couple of board meetings, which I think happens after they have their retreat. Sometimes stuff gets backed up. All right, any more? I think that's it as far as resolutions as far as voting, except for the last thing since we're all here and I know we're running a little bit over, is bylaws. I sent those out. Jamie emailed me, I think yesterday, for clarification about the whole thing about follow the Sac County lead, but Sac County has a list of a roster with seconds, but then in the narrative of their bylaws says only constitutional officers can have seconds, and that kind of conflict. County council stance is they agree that you should have a roster. They don't agree that just because it's not stated that you can't have seconds. So they agree in one part with Sac County, but disagree in the second part. So they said, create a roster, put in the bylaws that you can have seconds, and then they're okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. It made sense in my head. This is coming out.
So you've already made those modifications in the bylaws?
I'm.
Or you need to.
I took a stab at it of the ones that I sent
I
to you guys.
couldn't find them. I can't find that email.
And so I printed them out. Basically, here's what I said in there. I can read it out. So I added a section that says designees/backup. Executive members can assign one designee backup to fill their role on the executive committee should they be absent from a scheduled meeting. She said there should be a timeline, like a way, like structure around adding someone. So I put executive member can assign one designee per year and must do so in writing to the chair by March 1st of every year. Should they choose to have a designee, should the assigned designee be transferred, reassigned, and or no longer employed by the agency they are representing, a new designee can be assigned if requested in writing to the chair. And then it goes over position vacancies too. So like if someone is hired or retires or whatever happens or moves out, then that person would automatically fill their statutory role. But are you making a motion right now? Well, if you'd like to vote on today.
We adopt the bylaws that Jeff sent us.
I don't even know.
We just have the changes that Jamie just gave you.
Yeah, they are based on that. The ones that I sent are based on that discussion that I had with her.
Okay.
So I just double checked with her because she had said that before, but it conflicted what she said to look at in the Sac County bylaws. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Sorry.
Right. Any discussion? Oh my gosh,
You might actually get these done.
it's been since 2009 that
Yeah.
CCP was created. Now we have bylaws. I'm going out to lunch.
You gotta get the vote. We're all gonna vote no, just to make
All
it.
those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstain, hearing none, motion passes. Wow. No public comment. And can I get a motion to close the meeting?
So move.
All right, meeting closed. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All right, done.
Jeff is the chair.
Was it a link?
Not by choice, by statute.
Which means you can't have a designee.
I think so. Everyone else does.
Yeah, I accepted. Okay.
It says members.
I did.
Not only.